Hello and welcome to a look at Rick Dangerous for the Commodore 64, a game that was made by Core Design and released by Firebird. The plot of this game is that Rick Dangerous, part-time superhero, he is full-time superhero but part-time stamp collector, is on the lookout for some tribe of some description, but because he forgot to refuel his plane, he crash lands over the. His plane crashes in the jungles of some place in South America, and his first mission is to navigate a temple of some description and try to find the exit, and then progress from that point onwards. In his arsenal, he has a trusty stick that he can use to activate even switches and that kind of stuff, and temporarily stun natives or other bad guys of whatever type they may be. And of course, he has his six-shooter, which can be used to shoot things surprisingly. And he also has a few packs of dynamite that can be used to blow up traps and blow up walls and that kind of stuff. And if you are clever and have knowledge enough of the game, you can also use the dynamite to get rid of any enemy, whatever they might be, by clever use of the dynamite. And depending on how accurate you are with your shooting, you may sometimes be forced to use the dynamite, which is not exactly ideal. Let's do the technical side of things. Graphics-wise, the game looks perfectly decent. Rick Dangerous himself is very recognizable, and of course because of the fact that he's wearing a hat. Certain references or certain comparisons even was made between Rick Dangerous and a certain Dr. Jones, which I probably don't need to mention who I'm thinking of, but he always looks very cheerful in his facial expression, which I suppose is cool in a certain way because of the game being what it is. But the graphical style is perhaps a bit coarse, but it is entirely serviceable, and you can easily identify what the different elements are supposed to be. And yeah, it's not the prettiest game out there, but it works, and I'm perfectly okay with how it looks. On the sound side of things, the untitled music is funky. The jingles in the game are funky as well, enjoyable, all that good stuff. But when it comes to the sound effects, I have to admit that they range from being acceptable to being absolutely horrifically unbearable. The sound effect of the first boulder chasing Rick on the first screen even is akin to someone throwing gravel in a blender and switching it on, but I'm perfectly happy with accepting the sound effects for what they are because of the game as a whole. I don't necessarily like all of them, I will admit that. The controls, good old classic, left to move left, right to move right, up to climb and to jump, and down to duck and to climb down stuff, usually ladders and similar objects. Fire while pushing to either side will cause Rick to flash his stick. That stick, not the other stick you may think of. And holding down fire and pressing up will cause him to shoot his gun. And holding down fire and pushing down will cause him to leave a stack of lit dynamite behind in order to bypass objects, and you can possibly imagine that being so close to the lit dynamite is not a clever idea. The controls are perfectly responsive, and I'm fairly happy with how they are set up. It's nice that every mechanic function of the gameplay is tied to the joystick, so you don't have to be concerned about using the keyboard as well. When it comes to the gameplay, this is a puzzle platformer thing, as you can probably gather, and it is very much a question of trial and error. The game will like to tempt you into going to certain areas of the screen just to set a spike trap off in your face or something similar, and only by screwing up can you learn what not to do next time. Because thankfully in that regard there's absolutely no randomness in it. The game is designed in such a way that you learn by screwing up, and maybe that kind of gameplay is frustrating for you. Maybe it's enjoyable, but that is the gameplay that is served, and that is the gameplay you will have to tolerate if you decide to play this game. Outside of the fact that, as I mentioned, some of the sound effects being absolutely horrific, I'm not necessarily overly happy with the way the screen scrolling is handled. I prefer smooth scrolling screens and not these 1/3 of the screen scrolling at a time kind of jerkiness. But outside of that, the game as a whole, if you can tolerate the gameplay, which is basically haha screw you gameplay until you get the hang of it, there's no denying that Big Dangerous is a very, very accomplished and very, very enjoyable game. But enough about that. I have something else I should probably mention. Last year on this date, I did a completion of a game that I promised myself I would never play, and that was Last Ninja 2 on the Amiga. One of the worst games I've ever played as a whole. The programming ability on display of that game was absolutely epic for all the wrong reasons. But of course, I decided to play through that game because it happened to be my birthday, and I wanted to do something special out of it. Since it's the same date, but a year later, you can possibly imagine that it is my birthday yet again. But this time around, it is somewhat of a milestone birthday because I'm actually 50 as of today, which is a bit, yeah. So I sort of want to do something special out of it, but I have been a bit pushed for time. So it will have to be for the coming weekend instead of on the actual day, which it should have been, but you know, sometimes things just don't line up. And I'm doing it mainly to show appreciation of viewers, subscribers, and all that kind of stuff, which I don't particularly make a big fuss out of mentioning, but I do appreciate any viewer, subscriber, all that stuff. So, look forward to something over the coming weekend, and I hope you will find it enjoyable. On that note, thanks for watching, take care, see you next time, bye bye for now.